right, everybody. What's going on? Of course, I'm your host, Randon, and you're watching and listening to Don't Worry, We'll Talk It Out. I have a huge episode today. As you can tell by the title, we have a lot to really get into. So honestly, I'm just going to jump right into the intro, and then from there we can get right into the discussion. So tune in and let's get started. All right. As everyone can, of course, see by the title of this, the two pandemics, coronavirus and race relations, this is going to be a pretty in-depth episode, I feel. I have a number of topics that I really want to get through. And, this is just to state the obvious, of course. Over the last around 2 weeks, we have seen massive civil unrest across not only the United States, which is very important. It's not only in the United States. This is a global Black Lives Matter movement that we see happening across the entire globe. I mean, I've seen some of the craziest videos from Greece, from the United Kingdom, from certain countries in Africa and Sweden. I mean, it just goes down the list of the amount of protests that I have seen, and it's pretty incredible. And of course, I'm coming on here to really address the concerns and the obvious health concerns, the systematic concerns of the two pandemics that I'm going to be referencing throughout this entire discussion. And of course, the first one is the continuing coronavirus pandemic that we have been in for the last almost 4 months, I think, that we have been under at least somewhat strict lockdown and quarantine. And then, of course, I'm going to try to intertwine that with the kind of the hard truth of what it's like to be a Black and brown person in America. And the aspect of coronavirus and race is very, very connected, and I'm about to get into that as we speak. So let's go ahead and start with that. Let's start with some facts. All right. What we know is that coronavirus disproportionately affects Black Americans from low income. Now, nationally, we know that African American deaths from coronavirus, as of right now, are 2.5 times higher than the actual national average, okay? Especially based on their population. Of course, we're only around 12 to 13% of the population. So we obviously see a discrepancy there. And then if we continue, we can find some more. I'll put up a quick graph again by NPR. You can see it by state. More than proportional in pretty good size of the country. You can see the orange there. And you can see right there the light kind of yellowish orange there. So it's continuing again with a higher percentage of shares of death and cases in the African American population. So I bring that because, coincidentally, and this is the reason I want to talk about this on the podcast, is the fact that I'm not seeing this really, really talked about enough, especially in a lot of the mainstream liberal media that we can see. I am not seeing that coincidentally we have a crossroads here. We have coronavirus that I just explicitly stated and given factual information that because of years and years of systemic oppression against Black Americans, because of years of redlining, because of African Americans' propensity to have more chronic diseases, the comorbidities that we keep describing about coronavirus, that leads African Americans more likely to die of coronavirus. Now, at the same time, the marches that are happening during the pandemic are for the Black and brown individuals from low income, most of the time that I am referring to, the same people that are more impacted by coronavirus. Now, as a future clinician, I figured it was at least somewhat of my duty to kind of come on here and try to give an unbiased and a just presentation of the evidence of what I feel is actually occurring with the coronavirus. And how safe is it? How unsafe is it to actually be outside right now after 3 months of a lockdown, right? And I felt that there are a lot of public health officials who seem to be kind of dancing around telling the truth to the protesters, right? And that's why I felt like I had to come on here, right? So as I've already mentioned, because I have to keep repeating it because I think it's so important, the coronavirus disproportionately affects Black and brown individuals in America of lower income, which coincidentally happens to be one of the main reasons why we are in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, of course, and why this has sparked a fire in so many people globally, not just nationwide, right? So I'm about to pull up right now a Atlantic article. You can see it right now. The protesters deserve the truth about the coronavirus. This was written by a man named Connor Friensdorf. He is a journalist for the Times and the Atlantic, and he says, you can see the subtitle here: public health experts should strive to provide a neutral accounting of risks. And I agree with him, of course, on this. So essentially, Connor starts off describing the media's hypocrisy with the protests. Now, this is an interesting idea that I want to discuss real quick. So obviously, since the start of the pandemic, we have seen a number of instances where people have, of course, pulled back against the idea of a national lockdown, right? At the very beginning of this, we had a number of, high schoolers and college kids, going for spring break, going down to Florida, and you had a lot of funny videos of kids, not really, they were just 18-year-old kids. They were trying to have fun, and they didn't understand how at risk they were to spread the virus, right? And then about anywhere from 2 weeks to about a month later, we start getting the anti-lockdown protesters, right? A number of, not all of them, but a lot of them seem like to be Donald Trump supporters, MAGA supporters, some sprouts of anti-vaxxers, coming out the woodworks, the Bill Gates conspiracy theories, people were protesting. Of course, we had the narrative of that everyone in there wanted haircuts. That is not true. I think that is a narrative that the left has propagated to keep hold of a narrative, right? When in actuality, some people that were out there were small business owners who had gone under, and they didn't have a job anymore. They had possibly, they could be evicted and stuff. And it was real, it was real anger and tension and, fear in people that a lot of people. So now we're here. Okay, now let's go back 2 weeks ago until Derek Chauvin, kneeled on a man's neck and killed him in cold blood in 8.5 minutes. So that's where we are now, and that changed everything, of course. So like I said, getting back into the article. So essentially, Connor, as you can see right here, Connor mentions there were 1,200 individuals who were all from the public health community. They signed an open letter, and essentially in this open letter in which he criticizes, he says that, quote, however, as public health advocates, we do not condemn these gatherings as risky for COVID-19 transmission. We support them as vital to the national public health and to the threatened, health specifically of Black people in the United States. Now, as you can see going down this article, he says, notice the Weasley construction and things like that. Obviously, Connor does not agree with a lot of the things that the public health experts mentioned in that letter, and I actually agree with him. It's not about condemning the community, but you have to specify as a public health official that it is a risk for these individuals to go out to get coronavirus. You can specify that, but then on the side, you can have a political or ideological belief that we want to do away with systemic oppression and systemic police brutality. And the fact that we have public health experts kind of walking a fine line of their own political ideology and not being truthful about what could happen to, as I've mentioned before, the most susceptible group to be, attacked and killed by coronavirus. I think that's very dangerous, and that is something that Connor mentions at the very end of the article. He says, quote, on matters of life and death, the reinforcement of progressive social justice narratives should not get in the way of simple truth-telling. And when it does, it will only undermine the influence of those charged with informing America about the pandemic. The fallout? More Americans will decline to heed any public health advice or journalism, seeing it as ideological and hypocritical. I actually believe that we've already crept into that way too far, of course, with Donald Trump coming with the, not origination, but bringing the term fake news into the mainstream and using it, of course, on countless times and countless times. A decade in America, really, in the mainstream, we have been discussing the brutal tactics of police against unarmed African Americans. So this needed to be done. But again, as a future clinician and someone who loves science, and I want people to be safe. I want this coronavirus pandemic to be over. And I'm just like everyone else. And the only way we get it to be over is to just continue to reference the optics of how risky it is to be out there. And if people want to go out there, just tell them to do it safely, right? Try to figure out some sort of way to enforce the social distancing maybe not enforce because we don't want the police, but maybe we can get some ways to maybe increase, per capita testing, in certain cities in which a lot of larger amounts of protests are happening. I think these are very important because I think a lot of the individuals who are, of course, going to this protest are people like me, young 20-year-old, 30-year-old individuals who are young, and these are the people who always enact a lot of the changes that we see in a number of sovereign nations. And these are the individuals who might not get sick, right? They are going to be most likely asymptomatic carriers and being able to hurt someone in their family who didn't attend the protest. So those are really what the main things that I am really referring to. But anyway, guys, I didn't want to spend too much time, on this. I feel like I've given the facts, kind of portrayed what I felt was very important, showed highlights from journalists, public health officials, and everything. So I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. I just want people to stay safe, especially for the young people out there, actively protesting and doing amazing things, making change literally globally. It's amazing, and it's a lot, man. It's a whirlwind of information out there. So try to stay alert, but not anxious. I think that's very important. And thank you guys, of course, for listening. Please comment if you want to do a discussion at the bottom. I'll answer you. Give me a like if you can. Subscribe to the channel. And as always, I have been Randon, and you have been checking out Don't Worry, We'll Talk It Out.
Progress in this country and worldwide?
No. I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. You pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that's the blow made. And they haven't even begun to pull the knife out, much less try and heal the wound. They won't even admit the knife is there.
What's up, guys? Hope you all enjoyed the video. You can check back on some previously released videos right to this side of me right here. Also wanted to give a quick shout out to my new partnership and my first partnership here at Don't Worry, We'll Talk It Out. It's with Table Read Media. I'm sure a lot of you guys see the new animation that I have at the start of all these videos with the cute little construction guys. That's with a new media distribution company that I'm with. They're out in Los Angeles, and I'm super excited to be joining them as they're beginning their company and to be one of their first kind of podcasters and online media distributors out there. So it's going to be really fun to see what the future holds for us. And thanks again, guys, for continuing to check out the channel, and more content as always coming soon. So peace, guys, and stay safe out there.